I'm Shannon Bream for Brett Baer, who is on assignment tonight in New York. This is a Fox News alert. The frontrunner for the Democratic presidential nomination, who already has many trust issues with the American public, is dealing with problems both old and new tonight. There is word Hillary Clinton opened her Secretary of State's office to a steady stream of potential donors to her campaign. And we're getting a first look tonight at the latest batch of emails from her private servers and addresses. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry is here with details. Good evening, Ed.
Good to see you, Shannon. The largest document dump, 7,800 pages. Most significant, this batch has 328 more emails that have now been deemed classified. That means a grand total of 999 classified emails so far. Despite Clinton declaring in March her server had no classified information. Her campaign has noted the documents were not marked classified, while her critics say the secretary should have known it was sensitive information. And today, those critics got even more fodder.
The release of a new batch of Hillary Clinton's emails come amid new questions about whether she improperly opened up her office as Secretary of State for meetings with labor bosses, corporate campaign donors, plus contributors to the Clinton Foundation to help pave the way for her second presidential run.
This is the kind of situation that you get where money is the coin of the realm. Money buys meetings, it buys returned phone calls.
The Associated Press, after a years-long request under the Freedom of Information Act, has finally obtained copies of Clinton's daily calendars. PepsiCo Inc. CEO Indra Nooyi had 3 meetings with Clinton as the soda company spent millions lobbying the federal government. And the State Department pitched the cola giant on funds for a U.S. pavilion at an expo in China. Back in 2008, Pepsi's foundation had pledged $7.6 million in grants to 2 water firms as part of a program tied to the Clinton Global Initiative. Another sign of Clinton's intersecting worlds, she met 3 times with American Federation of Teachers chief Randi Weingarten, whose union has given up to $5 million to the Clinton Foundation. The union chief also sits on the board of a super PAC backing Clinton, and Weingarten endorsed her candidacy in July. There's no evidence of wrongdoing, and a Clinton campaign spokesman noted she has turned over her email and calendars to be transparent about her time as secretary, while also pledging campaign finance reform.
We need a Supreme Court that protects the right of every citizen to vote, not the right of every corporation to buy elections.
Now, the new emails also show in late 2012 a top Clinton aide consulted with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and Dr. and Senator Bill Frist about her concussion. Aide Philippe Reines emailed Clinton his goal was to, quote, undermine claims by Fox contributors John Bolton and Laura Ingraham, who had suggested she was faking the injury to avoid Benghazi testimony. Shannon?
And still many emails to comb through tonight.
Still going through them. Thousands of pages.
Thanks, Ed.
Good to see you.
Well, the time between Thanksgiving and New Year's may be holiday season to you, but every 4 years it is endorsement season for presidential candidates. Ahead of the first actual voting after the first of the year, the GOP hopefuls are trying to get as many people as possible to join up with them publicly. Correspondent Peter Ducey looks at the endorsement scorecard tonight.
A press conference with 100 African-American pastors at Trump Tower was called off as word emerged they were not all ready to endorse the Republican frontrunner as advertised.
I don't know that I would necessarily consider endorsing him. I think that's a little premature right now for me, but I'm willing to listen to see what he has to say.
One of the event's organizers, Pastor Daryl Scott, took the blame for the miscommunication. The meeting still happened, and the big endorsement may still happen too.
I've talked to a number of black ministers that said they're going to vote for Trump, but they just haven't come out publicly with it because they're afraid of losing members' support.
The sit-down came as Trump doubled down on his assertion that he watched live as large groups of Muslims in New Jersey celebrated the September 11th terrorist attacks.
Many people saw it in person. I've had hundreds of phone calls to the Trump Organization saying we saw it. It was dancing in the streets.
And now Trump's competition across the Hudson is getting a badly needed boost because Chris Christie, who didn't even make the main stage at the last debate, is the top choice of the Granite State's influential union leader newspaper, endorsing him because they think, quote, Governor Christie is right for these dangerous times. He has prosecuted terrorists and dealt admirably with major disasters. This morning, another important endorsement as Republican Congressman Darrell Issa backed Senator Marco Rubio.
He's not afraid to engage on the hottest subjects, and that's important.
Rubio is really raking in Republican support, accumulating 18 congressional endorsements compared to just 11 for Senator Ted Cruz.
If you think things are going great in Washington, that we need to keep heading in the same basic direction, just kind of fiddle around the edges, then I ain't your guy.
But only one candidate spent Thanksgiving in the Middle East, Dr. Ben Carson. Accused by rivals of being weak on foreign policy, he visited refugee camps in Jordan, and the outsider has a new prescription for Syrians displaced by ISIS.
I had an opportunity to talk to many of the Syrian refugees and ask them, what is your supreme desire? And it was pretty uniform. They want to go back home.
We may be starting to see a new crack in the pledge the party made all candidates sign to support the eventual GOP nominee, no matter who it is, because John Kasich is now refusing to say that he would support his side's nominee if it's Trump. But an RNC official told me today they are not concerned about Kasich potentially breaking that pledge. Shannon.
All right, Peter, thank you. President Obama has been invited to deliver the State of the Union address to Congress on Tuesday, January 12th. The invitation comes from House Speaker Paul Ryan. We are now awaiting a formal acceptance. The Obama administration is boosting the amount of ethanol and other renewable fuels in the U.S. gasoline supply. It's a victory for the ethanol industry over an unusual alliance of oil companies, environmentalists, and some Republican presidential candidates. The first caucus state, Iowa, produces more ethanol than any other state. President Obama says the climate change conference going on right now in Paris is an act of defiance to terrorism following the deadly attacks on the French capital 2 weeks ago. Correspondent Kevin Corke is traveling with the president and reports tonight from Paris.
In the largest ever gathering of world leaders for a summit of its kind, President Obama tried to draw a connection between countering climate change and the ongoing global war on terror.
What greater rejection of those who would tear down our world than marshaling our best efforts to save it? We have come to Paris to show our resolve.
The president, part of a group of 150 world leaders, gathered for the UN Climate Summit in Paris, a city still reeling from the devastating terror attacks 2 weeks ago that claimed 130 lives. Shortly after landing here Sunday night, Mr. Obama joined his French counterpart, President Francois Hollande, and the mayor of Paris in honoring the victims by laying flowers at a makeshift memorial outside the concert hall where most were killed. In the wake of the attack, security has been extremely tight, with police clashing with protesters who took to the streets in defiance of restrictions on such gatherings. Even as he met with the leaders of India and China, whose countries along with the U.S. are the world's largest producers of greenhouse gas emissions, the president continued to make the argument that climate change and terrorism go hand in hand.
This is a turning point. That this is the moment we finally determined we would save our planet.
The thinking goes this way. Severe environmental conditions contribute to a sense of desperation, and that, they say, fuels extremism. There's a military component, as rising seas and severe storms can also alter conflict preparation and execution. And there's the financial impact. Climate change means more heat waves, stronger hurricanes, and superstorms like Sandy, and huge wildfires, all of which cost U.S. taxpayers billions annually. The war on terror was among many topics discussed between the president and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The men met on the sidelines here and talked about their respective roles in the conflicts in Syria and Ukraine. Meanwhile, critics slammed the president's insistence that the terror war and climate change pose similar risks to national security.
Well, that's delusional. It is delusional for President Obama and Hillary Clinton and anyone else to say that climate change is our near-term most severe security threat. It is ISIS, period, followed closely by Iran and perhaps Russia.
Tuesday, we expect another very important meeting here at the summit as Presidents Obama and Erdogan get together here to talk not just about the climate summit, they're also going to talk about the war on terror. Keep in mind, Turkey is a key ally in the battle against ISIS, to say nothing of their NATO partnership. And it's also important to point out, Shannon, they're involved in a tense standoff with the Russians following the shoot down of that Russian aircraft that strayed into Turkish airspace. Shannon?
Yeah, we'll talk about all of that with the panel coming up. Kevin Corke, thank you, live from Paris. So President Obama is holding fast to his linkage between climate change and terrorism. Senior political analyst Brit Hume is here tonight with some thoughts on that. Good evening, Brit.
Hi, Shannon. Given the ghastly events of 17 days ago in Paris, it makes sense that world leaders would gather there this week. But as you've heard, they're not there to discuss global terrorism, but global temperatures. The incongruity is only underscored by President Obama's assertion that this gathering to discuss a non-binding climate accord is a, quote, rebuke to the terrorists. That's right, folks. The administration admits, indeed insists, that whatever agreement emerges from this conference will not bind the U.S. To be sure, President Obama will doubtless continue his current efforts to drive the coal industry out of business and to discourage the use of other fossil fuels. But that would be true with or without any Paris Climate Accord, which, by the way, is not expected to contain any enforcement mechanisms. This will be a relief to a majority of Americans who, while saying climate change is a serious matter, draw that line at taking some of the principal actions proposed to combat it. A CBS News poll this month found 60% opposed to paying higher taxes on gasoline and 79% opposed to higher taxes on electricity. So amid whatever hoopla the president and the other leaders can womp up at their Paris meeting, remember this: their deal will not be binding, and if it were, it would have to clear the Senate, which it can't. Shannon?
Well, Britt, this begs a lot of the same questions that we saw with the deal that the president entered into with Iran. There are some similarities.
There are. Neither is a treaty, and therefore neither is binding on future presidents. In the case of the Iran deal, however, there was money up front, that is to say money that was under sanction, that would be released under that deal and that Iran would benefit from right away, which is one of the reasons so many people resisted the deal. In this case, the president would like there to be some money up front for less developed countries to fight climate change, but that would require an appropriation by the Congress, and all the Republicans up there say there's no way he's going to get that. So this deal really is, he can continue to do whatever he's doing, but it's otherwise not binding.
Yeah, and some of those countries say without the money, they're not getting on board.
Exactly right.
All right, Britt, good to see you always.
Thank you, Shannon.
Well, up next, the accused Colorado Springs shooter makes his first appearance in court. But first, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Fox 32 in Chicago, where a suspect is in custody following a threat against the University of Chicago that forced the cancellation of classes today. Authorities say 21-year-old Jabari Dean threatened online to kill 16 white male students or staff. They believe it was intended as retaliation following last week's video release of the shooting of Laquan McDonald, shot 16 times by a Chicago police officer. Fox 4 in Dallas, where rain and flooding are blamed for 8 deaths in Texas since Thursday. More than 53,000 homes and businesses remain without electricity following an ice storm in Oklahoma. Authorities in Kansas say the band of storms left 6 dead in that state.